And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from the Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we're talking about Bitcoin, and there's been a fantastic dip. And what we say in the Bitcoin community is we need to buy the dip, or at least that's what people encourage you to do. So I'm just going to explain it from my point of view today so that you guys understand how critical and how important I personally believe Bitcoin will be to the world in the next few years and in the long term, and you guys can make your own decision. First of all, I've not wanted to talk extensively about Bitcoin as much in the past, and the reason why that has been, and I'm probably not going to mention it that much in the future either, because my expertise is relationships, my expertise is female nature, my expertise is helping you to become a leader, helping you to become more masculine over time so that you can have the amazing family that you desire. However, I haven't spoken about Bitcoin much because I wanted to basically get as much as possible myself. The reason why is because the more you share information about Bitcoin, the more people are going to become aware of it. The more aware they are of it, the more likely it is that they probably will buy some. The more people buy some, the more the value increases, which makes it harder for me as a Bitcoin believer to invest in it because it becomes more and more expensive. Now, obviously, it's a good thing for the Bitcoin that I already own, but what about all the Bitcoin that I don't own yet? Right? I want that part. So that's very often why I haven't spoken about it. But I wanted to kind of swoop you guys in to get some understanding about the awareness that I have about it thus far. Also remember, I'm not a financial advisor, none so ever. So keep your big boy pants on. If you invest in Bitcoin and it goes up, it's not because of me. It's because of you. It's your fault. You're to blame. And you can get all the credit. However, if Bitcoin was to dump and die, who knows? We don't know. No one knows about the future, right? Really. So, if that was to happen, that's also your fault, your responsibility. You have the big boy pants on, and you made the decision to buy it. This is only for educational purposes only, and I'm going to tell you about my thoughts around it. Understand also that the risk of buying Bitcoin, once it is mainstream, once everyone believes in it and uses it on a daily basis, the gains will not be as much as they are today. By that time, that will be factored into the value of Bitcoin. But if you buy today, there's tons of people who don't know what it is, who don't talk about it, who are not using it. So obviously, it could be a very interesting thing for those that come in early on. That's just the way it is. Let's look at a short clip from what people were saying in... Well, actually, let's just read this one first. When did people start using the internet? Let me give you guys some overview here. All right. When did people first start using the internet? 6th of August, 1991. 20 years ago today. That was basically in what? 2011? The World Wide Web opened to the public. 1991. Today is a significant day in the history of the internet, blah, 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 because the World Wide Web became publicly available. For me, Bitcoin is exactly that. It is the internet bubble, okay, that happened in 2000, 2001. That's going to happen with Bitcoin as well. Let's watch a quick clip. Well, this one's going to be a bit longer, but it's basically explaining the cryptocurrency marketing's implosion of September 2020. How low will Bitcoin go? So I think this one is an amazing video. I'm going to go again 1.5, so let's just speed through this one.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. My name's Austin. The cryptocurrency market right now, September 2020, is still correcting. Bitcoin actually showing some strength, holding some stability above 10K, although we're down 2-3%. It's really the altcoins that are draining hard right now, some back into Bitcoin, which explains the stability, and some just out of the market. In fact, if we zoom out a little, this is Bitcoin, just so we can zoom back in. Bitcoin, on the weekly scale, has dropped over 17% this week. Now, I'm not a fan.
Oh my gosh, Bitcoin is at a discount for 17%. It's a discount, okay, in my opinion. This is like, when it dumps, for me, I get fired up. When it goes up, for me, I get fired up. I get fired up no matter which direction Bitcoin goes because I know where it's going to go long term, according to my own opinion. In terms of my portfolio, in terms of me being excited about it, I'm fired up outside my brain, whether it goes down, whether it goes up. So that's a good way to think about life. Right? I speak about this channel in terms of failure. When I fail, I get fired up because I'm learning and I'm moving forward. When I succeed, I get fired up because I'm winning. Do you understand what I mean? This is the way that you need to look at your life, and this is the same thing with Bitcoin. When it goes up, awesome. When it goes down, awesome. All right, let's get some more. This channel is called Altcoin Daily. It's one of the channels that I watch together with Ivan on Tech, which is, oh my gosh, a beautiful channel. My favorite guy in the Bitcoin sphere, and also Sunny Decree. Those are the guys that I kind of watch. I also watch Peter Schiff, but he's against Bitcoin. So if you want to hear about the opposite side, he doesn't really explain why he's against it though. And he's got really bad explanations for it. But he doesn't believe that Bitcoin is going to be good at all in the future. So he's a gold guy. So, but I'm listening to these guys. And Mike Maloney talks about silver. Gold, silver, Bitcoin are the only hedges against hyperinflation. And if you think about hyperinflation, what's it called? The definition of inflation, if you go back 40 to 50 years in the dictionary, you'll see that inflation has nothing to do with the raise in prices. That's what people want you to believe these days, that inflation is an increase in prices, and it's about 2% every single year, or 4% or 5% or whatever it is that people are saying. No, inflation is the increase of money supply. Have you seen any printers go brrr the last few months? I have. Okay? All governments are printing a bunch of cash, stimulating the economy, stimulating banks, basically giving money to their friends, okay, the banks and all the other big companies, in order for them to stay afloat so that they can, keep doing what they're doing. That's not good. Okay? And so you need the hedges against inflation because we're already in inflation. We're already in hyperinflation because of the printers going brr. So gold, silver, Bitcoin are the recommended hedges in that sense. Let's keep going.
Financial advisor. But cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is in a bull market right now. And these are the times to increase your positions, buy the dips. So with everything going on with cryptocurrency today, I want to answer the question, just how low can Bitcoin go in September? When should you buy the dip? I also want to bring you the latest news right now if you appreciate this perspective on the cryptocurrency market. And let's start with Bitcoin. Right now, we are in a bull market. We have just started this bull market. For some perspective, let's go back to our last bull market, this run up from $200 to $20,000 and over 100x run up from 2015 to 2017 in the last bull market. Let me just fix this a little right here. That's 100x from 200 to 20,000. What do you notice? Specifically, I'm talking about with the corrections, so the price, the pullbacks. You will notice that I took the liberty and I have circled every time Bitcoin in the last bull market had an over 50% dip. How many circles?
So just quickly, do you understand what happened in 2015? Bitcoin was at $200. Okay, so it's like it's insane what was going on. Like, oh my goodness. In 2015, I didn't even know about it back then. In 2017, that's when I began to understand what it was. And by then, it was like around $6,000. And I'm like, I didn't know what it was. I barely invested in it. And then within a day or two, I took it immediately out and I lost like $100 in fees. You won't do that this time around. The fees are a lot cheaper these days. But I was just like, oh my goodness. I'd had no idea what it was. Now I know. Let's keep going.
Circles do you see? Zero, because I didn't circle any. Because Bitcoin in its 100x in the last bull market had zero, over 50% drawbacks. It was usually between 30 to 40% drawbacks, where we'd consolidate, find some support, and then keep pushing. Now, of course, that was 3 to 5 years ago. Let's zoom in to today. And yes, past performance is not indicative of future performance. But if we look at where we are now, obviously, with outrageous macro events like the COVID crash, we're going to have nasty pullbacks. In retrospect, that was the best time this year. You could have bought the dip. But what's the point? As a Bitcoin holder, what is the point of this video? The point is thinking that this year, 2020, going into 2021, is going to be the same as 2015 going into 2017, 2018 is false. To me, it's false, taking into account where we are in the cycle right now and the macroeconomics happening in the world. The Fed publicly stating that they will print as much money as they need. Banks, US banks now legally able to custody cryptocurrency, and more on-ramps now, more than ever, more on-ramps to get into cryptocurrency. We do not have the luxury of waiting for a 30 to 40% pullback, let alone a 50%, which never happened in the last bull run. But even waiting for a 30 to 40%, it's risky. It is risky if you're trying to accumulate.
It's insane to look at the price action. So basically what he's saying, I could have waited from 2017, just accumulated a bunch of cash, and then waited to jump in to the March 2017 when everything was basically, there was blood in the streets and the stock markets and gold and Bitcoin and everything, right? That was the time to jump in and to buy all of it. Because if I'd done that, I would have made 300% on my money just in about 6 months. Amazing. That's pretty cool. So, but what are the chances that that's going to happen in the future? Will it happen in the future? And if so, then you should just be accumulating a bunch of cash. But is it possible that there could be a hyperinflation in the dollar as well? Or that gold and Bitcoin will just rise and rise and rise before the dollar goes down and it doesn't ever go back to 10K? I have another one that I'm listening to, Alessio Rastani, who's a technical trader, and he says there's one more time that Bitcoin is going to come back below $10,000. So who knows if this is it or if it's close to $10,000. And then after that, it probably will never see $10,000 ever again. And I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool to know. So let's read this quick article here. Bitcoin is still in an early stage. This was an article in 2018. Someone else has made a new article, but I haven't found it. But he said, if you hold 0.28 Bitcoin, you're part of the 1%. In the world right now, I think where I read it, if you are part of the 1%, you're making about $200,000 to $300,000 a year. That's if you are part of the 1% in terms of wealth in the world. And I don't know if that's the entire world, but you guys can tell me in the comments. But think about that. 0.28 Bitcoin. Let's see what that is. Due to the fixed supply of Bitcoin, Steve Lee stated that only 1% of the world's population can own more than 0.28% Bitcoin. If you own 0.28 BTC and hold, you can be certain no more than 1% of the current world's population can ever own more Bitcoin than you. A modest investment of, today it's actually $3,000, talking about today's prices, can ensure that you are a 1%er in the future Bitcoin world. Wow. When I hear this, okay, if you understand that, why not get one entire full Bitcoin? Let's see about this. There's one. Let's see. The 0.28% Bitcoin figure introduced by Lee assumes the supply of Bitcoin to be 21 million, as it divides 21 million by 0.28 and divides the outcome by that by the world population, which is 7.6 or 7 point something today. If the research of chain analysis is accurate and that 4.6 million Bitcoin are lost on the blockchain, you hear that? 4 to 6 million Bitcoin lost on the blockchain because people forget their passwords. It's just that simple. The supply of Bitcoin should be closer to around 16 to 17 million. Based on that estimate, only 0.8% of the world population can own more than 0.828 Bitcoin, and less than 0.2 of the world population can own more than 1 Bitcoin. So if you own more than 1 Bitcoin, it's simply $10,000 approximately right now, 10,400. You will be part of the 0.2 population of the world in the future if Bitcoin was to become the reserve currency for everyone around the world. And I highly recommend that you study that out. Is that actually possible? If the dollar enters into hyperinflation and no one wants to use the yuan from China or the ruble from Russia, who's going to be the dominant factor? Who's going to be the country or the amount of countries that will regulate money? Because none of these countries will want Bitcoin to become big, because they want to retain the power. And if they got control over the printer and giving it to their friends, then Bitcoin is a problem, isn't it? But I'll talk more about that in a second. There are not enough Bitcoins for everyone with the Coinbase account to own one. Coinbase is one of the biggest exchanges when it comes to cryptocurrency. And if you look at this, in the last months now they have 25 million, and this was in 2018. I don't even know how many Coinbase users there are right now. But if all of them owned Bitcoin, none of them would have, just a few of them would have over 1%. So, quite interesting. Just wanted to share this with you guys. Now I want to share with you why I think about Bitcoin the way I do, because I am for truth, freedom, and family. That's what I'm for. Nothing else. And if you understand truth, let's look at the fiat currency, shall we? The fiat currency, if it is fixed, then it is based on truth. If a currency is based on someone being allowed to manipulate it in order for it to go up and to go down and to go up, but it only goes up continuously. If you look at I don't have it here, but on my Instagram account, maybe we should just briefly go there, because this is interesting. If you guys are not signed up to my Instagram account, you guys definitely do that, because it's a pretty cool account, actually, to be honest. But let's look at what I say when regards to the dollar. Okay, here you go. Can you see, guys? Let's see. Oh, trying to make it bigger, but it doesn't work. Okay, so if you looked at 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created, the dollar, let's say that the dollar was $1 at $1 was $1 at that point, okay? Over time, you can see the decrease in the value of the dollar, all the way until right now, where the dollar has lost 96% of its value since 1913. And this was 3 years ago. And since then, the printers have been going brr, which means that the value of the dollar has decreased even more so now than 2017. Think about that for a second. Which means that, you understand how they're talking about inflation, that they want to increase it by 2% every single year, 2% every single year. But when we talk about personal development, imagine if you improved yourself or declined 2% every single year. Let's use decline as an example. You decline in your health 2% every single year. You decline in your financials 2% every single year. You decline in everything 2%. Let's say your relationships 2% every single year. What's going to happen at the end of that curve? It's going to hyperinflate downwards. Does that make sense? Like it's going to decrease exponentially. It's exponential growth. That's what happens. Compounding effect. It's the eighth wonder of the world that Albert Einstein talks about. You've got to realize how this monetary system works, because they're simply increasing their value, and then they're buying assets when people don't have any more money, because that happens to all of us. Okay, if you have the same job for a long period of time, and inflation, they say that it's 2%, but it's more like 5% and 10%, and your increase hikes are about 2% per year, because that's what inflation is, then you're going to decrease in your standard of living exponentially over time until you're poor. This is what they do to the middle class. They're stripping the middle class right now. And what they're doing is they're making it so that only a few, there's going to be more rich people, but there's going to be a massive amounts of poor people. The middle class is going to be stripped. That's what's going to happen over the next few years. Maybe it'll take a decade. Who knows? But this is what you need to understand. How monetary system works, and I recommend the channels that I visit on a daily basis to understand this. But you can also hear it from me as well, because I will be talking about it more in the future. So again, truth. Is the dollar true? No, it's not, because people can manipulate it and make it worthless overnight if they choose to, because it's not even printing anymore. It's simply putting zeros on the computer. And then what they do with their friends, their rich friends, they end up saving the banks, and then they buy tons of gold. That's what's going to do. And they buy tons of distressed assets with real estate and etc., etc., etc. because the middle class, once their savings become worthless, okay, because they're saving money and then the value has lost all of their value, so it's like, oh great, I worked for all these years to have nothing, right? So if you don't invest in gold, silver, Bitcoin, then you're putting yourself at risk for those that have the printer. Okay, so it's not true. Neither are any of the other fiat currencies that nationalities or that governments are able to manipulate according to what they desire. Because all of them will go to zero, and then they replace it with the new currency. Okay? All of the fiat currencies always go to zero. If we know that, and if we know the history behind it, then you'll know that gold, silver, and Bitcoin is basically what's happening right now as we speak, and it's still early on because the world has not gone into it. I was speaking to one of my clients the other day, and he was talking to a financial manager, someone who's like a high flyer guy, always suit and tie type of guy, and he was coming into his gym. And he was talking to him about, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin and how that thing is going on? And he's like, oh, yeah, Bitcoin is not really important, you know, then it's like, I don't know, is it like $6,000 or something? He had no idea what was going on. And obviously, he's not studying what's happening to the economy long term in the future. So just talking about that. So basically that's the truth aspect. But the freedom aspect, let me explain to you some things about Bitcoin, and which is the reason why I believe in it so much, is because it is the only way that we can separate money from government once and for all, forever. As long as Bitcoin stands, and this is my personal opinion that it's going to stand. Maybe there's going to be something new in the future, but by that time, we'll be able to take out the money in Bitcoin and go into the next project that is better than gold. Me personally, I believe that gold is that Bitcoin is a better investment than gold. Personally, that's just my opinion. But the reason why, and I'll explain to you why, is because gold is where everyone hedges, like the rich people hedge their money because it's so valuable, right? That they need something that is extremely valuable in order to store their millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? That's what the rich invest in to save it. But it's kind of interesting because only 5% of gold is being used for industrial purposes, which means that 95% of it is just kept to hold it and just as a storage of value, which means basically that they're digging it up out of the ground and then they're putting it back into the ground and then they're securing it with security. So it costs money to store it. It costs money to dig out and then it costs money to store it, which is ridiculous in many aspects. This is me personally. Also, when you have gold, what happens is that if there's some really big problems in the country that you reside in and you want to leave, you're probably not going to be able to bring your gold because they're going to confiscate it at the border if they see what you have. Especially if there's war going on or corruption going on and a lot of crap going on in your country, this is what happens. For 40 years, gold was not allowed to be held in terms of gold bars and like big gold reserves, was not allowed to be held by the US government. They confiscated that gold, or they said, oh, you can bring it to us and we'll give you money. We'll give you fiat dollars for it, okay? But it's illegal to hold it, so don't you hold it, all right? So that's what they were doing. Now from the 70s, they basically made it legal again, but who is to say that someone in the future, no matter where you are in the world, might say, you know what, it's not legal to hold gold anymore because everyone wants gold and we want the government to hold all gold. So we're going to do that and we're going to confiscate your gold. And they can do that if they find out where it is, which means that you have to bury it, find a very specific place where you hold it, and you can't move around because your gold is there. And if you do move around, you got to bring it with you. For me, personally, I don't see gold as the future because of millennials, okay? The baby boomers, they didn't have anything like Bitcoin, but the millennials, they understand, they're beginning to understand digital money in such a way that I believe that the next 50 years will be governed by those in terms of monetary reserves is going to be Bitcoin. Moving on to silver. Silver has so much, right now it's 1 to 70 in terms of gold-silver ratio, and It's a beautiful investment, absolutely. Okay, invest in silver if you don't believe in Bitcoin. And the reason why is because that has the most explosive potential. If you want a rate of return back on your money and you don't believe in Bitcoin, then that's better than gold. Gold is going to hold its value, but silver will outpace it, because very often in a society or in a time where gold becomes extremely valuable, silver always grows faster. Because it's less valuable when everything is wonderful. Like, why would you hold silver? It doesn't make any sense when gold is cheap, right? So silver has like a massive drawback in a very good economy, but in a very bad economy, silver jumps past gold in terms of return on investment. So good thing to understand that, but at the same time, it's so cheap that in order for you to hold a lot of value in it, you have to store it somewhere. And it's so much that, like, where am I going to store all this stuff? And can I travel with it, etc., etc.? But if there's no problems, silver is better to buy stuff with than gold. Now going back to Bitcoin, in terms of freedom, you can literally, as long as you've got your passwords and you never, ever, ever lose them, and you remember them, and you keep them safe, okay, then no one can ever confiscate your Bitcoin ever for the rest of your life. Can they come in and say with the gun to your head, give us your Bitcoin? Yes, of course, but they could do that with gold and silver. But if you say no, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They can't do anything if they don't have your passwords, because it's impossible to break through the security. Impossible, okay? I'm saying that because no one's done it successfully now in the past few years, as the security has increased, as millions and millions of computers are working to secure the network. So, do you understand what I mean, though? It's like impossible for them to confiscate it, which means that you can hold your Bitcoin and it's actually a storage of value, and it doesn't cost you any money to store it after the first aspect of investing in your hardware wallet. I think Bitcoin is, and it's divisible. You know, people say, "Oh, I can't buy a whole Bitcoin. I don't have money for it. I'm poor, so I can't buy something for $10,000." But you understand now that you can buy just a small percentage of Bitcoin. You can buy 0.0001 of Bitcoin right now. Anyone can do that. You can invest $50 in it. It's amazing because it's divisible, which means that once Bitcoin becomes huge, let's say it does become $1 million per Bitcoin in the future, which is highly likely, by the way, because dollars is going to become absolutely worthless, okay? Which means it's going to get to that. But is it going to get to that $1 million in purchasing power in today's dollars? That's going to be interesting. But from the aspect of the divisibility, meaning if you want to buy something at the shop, most probably they're going to accept Bitcoin in the future. If you're in a country where they allow that, okay, Russia might not allow it because they banned Bitcoin right now. You're not allowed to use it in any transaction. But in other countries, like, just a quick thing, why would a country ban it if it was just like an invisible thing where, you just save it on this invisible ether internet thing, and you can't really use it for anything? If it did not have value, why are governments banning it? Okay? Is it to protect their citizens from scams? No, it's not. It's because that has the power to overthrow all of the monetary governments, like in terms of governments having control over the money. Okay, the same way, I'm going back to the same way that religion got separated from government 200 years ago. It's amazing that it took us, 6,000 years? Like, how many thousands of years did it take for us to separate religion from government? Okay, now we've come to the point where we want to separate money from government. Even if I didn't believe that Bitcoin was going to go up in value, simply from the standpoint of a libertarian view, I would invest in Bitcoin simply because I wanted to succeed. I wanted to win. I would donate money voluntarily that I would lose, okay, on purpose. And I don't care, because it has the potential to overthrow governments in the future. That's how much I desire freedom. That's how much I think about freedom. When the Libertarian Party started out in Norway, I was already part of the the Libertarian Party that was there, that was existing before the new one started. So, but the old one said basically, okay, we're gonna give it up now because there's a younger party which has more potential, blah blah blah. So we're gonna close down this party, and this is gonna be the real party now. And I'm like, oh, new party, they need my help. For a time there, I gave 10% of my income every single month for like a year or something to that political party. That's how passionate I am about freedom, about libertarianism. And Bitcoin, gold, and silver has the potential to overthrow governments. But I don't see gold and silver having that much power, because no matter what, if there's a gold standard, this is what I've learned about the gold standard. No gold standard will ever work, because every single time there's a gold standard, governments lie about how much gold they have because they want to print. So they say that, oh, you have this money, it's called dollars, and it has monetary value compared to gold. And it's redeemable in gold. But then they lie about the numbers, which they did until 1971 when Nixon said, yeah, we need to take the dollar off of the gold standard because we don't have any more gold. We've given it all away. So, yeah, let's take it off, right? And amazingly enough, they managed to stay in business for 50 more years. It's insane. Okay, but the world is beginning to understand now that the dollar is becoming worthless, and then, you know, they're all going back to gold, basically. So anyway, just wanted to share these thoughts with you guys about the importance of getting away from the totalitarian governments that are becoming bigger and bigger over time these days. Democracy might die in the future. Sorry to tell you that, but we're in a wealth cycle right now. We're in a cycle of history where if you look at the voting mechanism, okay, I'm just going to wrap this up by explaining masculinity and femininity in terms of voting for you. Because in the past, it was only rich white men that were allowed to vote. And that's true. In America, that's what happened. They had to own land in order to vote, etc., etc. Over time, this changed, right? Until we got to the point where in 1890s, women were now allowed to vote. Fantastic. Okay, I'm all for it. I want women to have that. But you know what's going to happen over time? They're going to vote for more and more socialism. If you guys have been around my channel for a while, you'll know that masculinity votes for capitalism, individualism, and are more selfish in terms of my special interests, and then everyone should take care of themselves because I'm able to take care of myself. As a masculine man, you can take care of yourself and your family. And so you'd want limited government. Why would you want the government to take tons of money from you if you know you can make tons and tons and tons of money? So you will actually be providing for everyone else. But it's people that you can't see, so you don't get any rewards from anyone for doing that. Some people say that taxes is the price we pay for a civilized society. That's actually another one that I had. Oh my gosh. Do I have it here? No, I didn't publish it. Anyway, it was a really cool meme about I want my money back, because it was showing the riots that happened a couple of months ago, and it's not civil at all, and the person said, I want my money back because taxes, you're stealing taxes from me, and you know, the society is not becoming safer. Interesting how that works. What was I saying? I was explaining that yeah, anyway, doesn't matter. I'm just explaining to you guys, it's the future. I believe personally that Bitcoin is the future. I believe that the way they spoke about the internet in 1995 is the way that we're talking about Bitcoin right now. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people are using it, but it's not mainstream. It's not mainstream at all, but it will be. And I'm fired up and excited about it, and I'm doing it for the freedom of the people and for our families. This is the Men of High Value channel. Let's just do a quick see through. Oh my gosh, if there are anyone who commented, and there wasn't any, so that's awesome. So I'll talk to you again tomorrow, or probably in a few days time.